guys, Keith here. I wanted to share a change that's coming up in 2018.12, a bit of a deviation from our usual stuff in that this is actually a feature that's been developed for our users who use xLights in a more interactive way for community theatre and the like. So I've got a layout here that might be a very simple stage show, a couple of matrices and a single moving headlight. You might have a bunch of cues where you want the lights to do a bunch of things during the show and you want to be able to press a button and make a cue take off. Now, up until now, we really have only given you one solution for that, and that was you would go and create all your cues as separate sequences. You'd go to the scheduler, you'd create a whole bunch of schedules, and then you would use buttons or something inside the scheduler to trigger the cues during the show, which is a fair amount of work and fairly elaborate. And a lot of people basically didn't bother with that. They just went and created a sequence and then would, like this one, and then they would just go in and they would click on an effect, and that effect would run those elements, and each one of these sections would be a cue for an effect. And of course they can be any length you want to be, and this could be as long as you want it to be, and then you just scroll across to the appropriate cues at the appropriate time, and you'd have to find the right one and click on it and hope you got it right. So we wanted to provide something that was a little bit easier to use, a little bit more like Madrix and Gladiator and Jinx and the like. And so in 2018.12, we've added a Jukebox panel. You get it via the View menu. You go to Windows and you bring the Jukebox up. And it's basically a set of buttons. There's 50 of them. Hopefully that's enough. But if someone moans and says it's not, I'm sure we could add a few more in. It's not a big deal. Now, I've actually only set 4 of these buttons up, coincidentally, coinciding with these 4 particular effects, and all the rest are just red. And if I click on any of the red ones, it just turns all the lights off. Now, of course, if you were using this in a real show, you'd have your output to lights on up here, and you'd be pumping the data out and driving your props either over your USB DMX connection, or maybe you're using E131, however it happens to work. And so when you come up here and you click the buttons, the effect that is associated with that button starts to play. And it will continue to play until you click on something else, such as one of the red buttons, and telling it to stop. So pretty easy to do. Now, there are no transitions in or out. If you want to do transitions in and out, you effectively have to do that within the effect, and then you'll have to manually stop it before it loops back around if that's what you want. Obviously, you'd put a little blackness at the end or something so that you could do that. So how do you do the association? Well, let's go and pick another button here and do an association. And there's really 2 ways to do it. The first way is using an effect description. And the way you do that is if you select an effect, you have to select it first, and you right click on it, you can come down to this description field and you can type a description into against this effect. And that could be a cue name. In this case, I've put the number 2. The 2s in the timing track don't mean anything. I just put them up there so it was clear to me which was which. But I've named or put a description of 2 against this particular effect. And so if I want button 21 here to run that effect, I can come up here, I can say this is going to be Q2. You don't need a tooltip, it's optional. I can come down to the effect description, I can choose number 2 and click OK. And now when I click on 21, it will launch that effect, as you can see, exactly as you would expect it to do. The other way that you can do it is, and I'll set up 23, the other way you can do it, actually before I do that, I'll come back here and show that if you hold the mouse over it, it's going to display the text. Oh, did I not do that? It must not be saving. I'll have to have a look at that. Doesn't matter. So the other way you can do it is you can use this model layer and time. And there what you do is you choose the model that the effect is on that you want to trigger. So in this case, we're going to choose this butterfly. So it's on the matrix. It happens to be on the first layer of the matrix. So we'll choose layer 1. And it happens to start at 10 seconds. So we'll choose the 10 seconds and we'll click OK. And so now when we click on the 22, it will fire that effect, select it and start playing it. Go back to 21, it'll go back and so forth. And so these buttons let you just switch around and display particular effects at particular times. Hopefully a lot easier, a lot less trouble prone than trying to come down here and click on effect and make sure you don't move it, making sure you lock it and everything else. And as you can see from the first array of effects, you know, anything that happens to be within that time interval happens. So both the matrices are going, my moving head's going, everything's operating according to the effects that I happen to have dropped in here. So yeah, hopefully our theatre users and the like find some uses for that. Cheers, guys.